Hello again, Toon Tank fans, which there can't be too many of us, but I like Toon vehicles, so I'm going ahead. Here we have Meng number 4 in the series. I know they're up to 20, and it's the Russian KV-2 tank, a heavy tank, of course. Really cool illustrations. One day I might actually try to paint it to look like a cartoon, one of these tanks. But there's a more realistic weathering, I guess. And then nothing there, but there's some stats usually here in the bottom corner and a little story. Okay, so yeah, 52 tons. This is a heavy vehicle, crew of 6. 3 people would actually be in the turret alone, that big turret there. And so this one is mounting a howitzer because the Russians were having a hard time breaking through some concrete bunkers, so they asked for the KV-1 was a more normal sized turret, but they asked for something that had a more powerful howitzer, so that became the KV-2. 152 millimeters, 140 kilometers of range, 28 kilometers per hour. Okay, so I'm reading some more Wikipedia here because I find it to be quite interesting. At the time, the German tanks were the Panzer III and IV, and their cannons were simply not powerful enough to break through the armor of the KV-1 and the KV-2. So it was only the Flak 88 that was able to bust through one of these things. And so I think that's what led to the development of the Tiger 1 tank. You know, they specifically said, hey, we need to put a Flak 88 inside of a tank, probably to bust through these KVs. But as you saw, the thing weighs a lot for, Wikipedia says 45 tons. And so these things would get stuck in the mud and all that stuff, and they're too heavy to cross bridges and all that stuff. So this is quite packed well. I've never seen one packed like this. Someone opened this and added this. It doesn't come this way usually. Let's see, it's powered by a V12 diesel engine, making around 600 horsepower, but it only has 13 horsepower per ton, so that's not, much power to move a ton, 13 horsepower. Okay, the armor was up to 90 millimeters thick, 3.5 inches, which for the beginning of the war might have been fine, but later on, like the Tiger tanks had much thicker armor and stuff, because they were now putting Flak 88s and huge howitzers into these tanks, so quite interesting. Okay, so that's what I learned about that. Here's some pictures, and generally they seem to all just be like a drab olive color, so I'll probably do that. Maybe I'll do, well, we'll see what happens. Seems to have metal tracks. Okay, well, let's just see if there's any weird issues with the plastics themselves, but from my experience, the plastics are pretty good. They don't have like a lot of waviness that you would find in like even a Bandai model kit. In general, the surface looks like one continuous, green. There's no weird waves or artifacts in the molding, so that looks pretty good. In particular, if we look at the hull, let's see if there's anything. Some scratches though. Some sink marks from these peg posts there. See, that's what I mean. You see these little lines right there where the plastic meets somewhere in the molding process, but right there it doesn't matter. You're never even gonna see that. There's some weirdness here. Yeah, alright, I am seeing it now. Yeah, see that line, that line. If that stuff bothers you, you probably want to paint these. But for a tank, it doesn't really bother me so much because it's supposed to look weathered anyways, so any sort of weird defects and stuff, it's just battle wear and grime, I imagine. As usual, the instructions are quite good. You just have to be able to read numbers and arrows. Alright, so it's like that. I do find very often now, from my experience, it's probably best to not put the hull together, because if you have any of these parts that are too loose or too tight, you want to be able to modify the hole. Either open the hole up if it's too tight, or add glue on the backside after you push it in. But if it's already attached to the hull, you're not going to be able to do that. So I basically don't put the hull together until all the little bits are placed on there in most cases. So it's just a little tidbit. Yeah, I had a case where I put the turret together and I couldn't get it apart, but these two halves were like crooked on my I think it was the Tiger Porsche. So I'm going to make sure I glue these two halves together first before I put that thing on. I want to make sure that surface is perfectly flat because it affects the ability of the bottom to twist in the chassis. Alright, so yeah, then you got some decals and all that stuff. I do find that the decals are very tightly spaced, so you have to have some really fine scissors, and you have to cut out these numbers because those become decals also, and they might contaminate the one you actually want. Alright, well, as usual, I will, fast forward, put this to some music. You could obviously slow down the video if you want to watch me build it, and then we'll come back when it's finished. Okay, so here we are again, and it's got somewhat of a winter wash, not a drastic white wash, but just a little bit, because I still want to see, the olive drab of the plastic there. I didn't prime it or anything like that, I just have a bunch of washes all over it. Okay, so there were definitely a lot of issues that made me waste an hour or two trying to fix. The main one is the turret. So the turret is two halves. You can see there's a split line, right? So that traps the actual cannon in here. And then you can peg that in after the fact. So I made sure those are all straight. But then what happened is putting the top on, it has these flanges that sit inside of this whole cup now, right? And they were just too wide. So I ended up having to grind them away and essentially having to UV glue this entire top onto this thing. If I actually kept the flanges where they were, the bottom half of the turret would be like wider than the top, or vice versa. I forget now. You have to go back to the build, but it just wouldn't look like this surface would match that surface. So it took quite a bit of modification to figure that out and deal with. All right, what else is going on with the turret? You can obviously see that the howitzer or cannon will go up and down. This hatch is a pretty smart design. It doesn't really want to rest 100% concentric. There's a little gap right there. But it does... Uh-oh. Maybe the paint wash has it stuck. Uh-oh. I'm not sure if I can open this. Oh, wait. Luckily, I can see it from the bottom, so I'm going to jam a screwdriver in there. There we go. So be mindful of that. So this thing will just come out. It's got this curved piece, and this curved mating piece that you have to jam in there. And I think that thing was causing a lot of the problems as far as fitting the top to the bottom parts. But it's nice that you can open this hatch. And it's a pretty big hatch, so I think you could get a little cartoon character in there someday. I'm still trying to find some characters that'll fit these things. So that's nice. And then there's just no way. That thing's very snug, so very good. Alright, some details, added some black paint in the periscopes, and yeah, okay. Oh, this machine gun also pivots. This ball is trapped on the back inside surface, so I think that's pretty neat, that little bit. I added a little silver where I thought it would have a lot of wear, and then, yeah, just a brown wash, a tan wash, and then like a light gray wash. 3 washes going on, as well as some pigment rust there and there. What's really odd is the placement. These teeth seem fine, but look how short the index is rotated. Like, this is such a most logical position to just pose your tank in, right? And if you pick it up, it'll just do that and fall to the floor, right? This thing should be 90 degrees, I think, because most people aren't going to pose their turret 90 degrees that way, right? So that's a really strange choice. That's a weird, bad design decision, I think. Alright, so yeah, there's a lot of pigment rust here sealed in. I guess these must be the intakes. There's a black Tamiya paint wash on that. A lot of pigment rust on these tracks. I painted these a slightly different green. These jerry cans, and they have 3 different colored caps. Making all this up, I didn't look for historical accuracy. Periscopes again, and the sight windows are painted black. This little machine gun can pivot up and down a tiny bit. Yay, like that much. And it can move left and right. Again, there's a tiny ball back there, but not as big as the last one we talked about. Oh, another big problem. The tracks. These rubber tracks are so tight, when I put them on, they bent the axles that these wheels are on. These wheels actually have little plastic rubbery inserts on all of them, kind of like a rolling model kit would have. The problem is the pegs are so thin, and the track has so much tension, it's a horrible idea. It would be better if they just didn't have those rubber bits at all, because then they could have had thicker pegs to mount these on. So I'm not sure why they went about doing that, because the other ones I have don't have any of those rubber inserts in all the wheels. So weird. So what I ended up having to do is having to use super glue. I took these off, super glued them, and I actually had clamps because the tracks are trying to pull them tight. So these are clamped and then super glued. Same with the fronts. But you can still remove the half of the wheel. So then you can slide and I removed these three, slid the rubber track on. Then I put these two back on. Then I put these three in. And that's how I got the tension. So it is interesting, the design that the track is actually trapped entirely by the drive wheels and the whatever you would call the other wheel. And then the bogies are inside the track. So that's interesting. I did use a bunch of Mr. Hobby yellowing mud, but with the brown paint wash, it now looks like it's rust, and that worked out just by accident. There is a matte clear coat on this thing, but it's still got a little bit of a sheen to it. I eventually, after I did the whitewash, I scraped off where I thought people would walk around a lot. So that's why you can see a lot of the green here, because I scraped off the whitewash because I figured people would be standing and stuff like that on the tank. There's a little black pigment at the front of the barrel here. Boy, anything else? No, not really. So yeah, there's basically two major problems. The assembly of the turret to be perfectly aligned. You might have to modify it. Maybe mine was just molded poorly, and you'll have better luck. But yeah, the poor design of this whole wheel system. Yeah, just be prepared to glue them in place because the tracks are just too tight. They want to pull those two ends inwards, so it's not good. Alright, well, you can see the other tanks I've built so far, and we'll see how it stands in the lineup here. This is the Russian heavy tank, probably the biggest tank the Russians had maybe in World War II. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I would say it falls in number 3. So, we have the Porsche Tiger. This is the Char B1, a French tank, there. And then the Sherman tank is a medium tank, and then this M5 Stuart is a light tank, but the Sherman's actually smaller than the Stuart, so I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe it's just by weight it's heavier. I'm not sure if dimensionally it's smaller than the Stuart. Please leave a comment if you're a tank expert. I've been too lazy to look up the dimensions. But these three, I guess this is the only one that's really questionable to me. Those look like they make sense. Heavy tanks, light tank, size-wise, quite a bit of difference. Well, as usual, I gotta say, they're really fun model kits to build. Actually, now I see here, I think this piece is also warped, you see? There's a bit of a bigger gap here than in the back. Whereas this side I managed to get it a little tighter. So yeah, this turret was a real pain to put together. I always thought this was a cool tank design. It's just it's just so blocky. There's no stealth going on whatsoever. This is like a rolling building, right? Boy, these things must have been such death traps. Or they just got stuck in the mud, it seems, because they're so heavy. Alright, well, anyways, yeah, stay tuned if you like these Meng tanks, because I'm going to build another one of these days. Alright, we'll see you then. Bye.